All right, Stick Library. Back at you, Pat Petrillo here, and covering a few more grooves from Hans Grooves and Fills. And within a groove, there's many different sub-styles. We have R&B, we have pop rock, we have drum and bass, we have salsa funk or Latin funk, and we also have something called New Orleans funk. Now, this style of playing is based on a swing 16th note feel. So instead of playing 16ths like this, the groove is going to have a bit of a swing to it, or a shuffle, so those 16ths are going to syncopate a little bit. So now the groove that I play has to fit within that mold of the swing 16th notes, okay? So this track is called New Orleans Funk, and this is real typical of a group called the Meters, and another great drummer, another great group that is very important for you to listen to. We mentioned Clyde Stubblefield and the James Brown Band, Zig Modeliste and the Meters. As a matter of fact, we can go even back before that and talk about the great Earl Palmer, who played on a lot of records with Little Richard and Fats Domino, and was really one of the fathers and leaders of early rock and roll and R&B and New Orleans roots, playing those grooves. Okay, and Zig Modeliste was a contemporary of those, of Earl Palmer, of those styles. So now we're going to play a swing groove in that New Orleans style. And once again, I'm going to play the track for you so you can get an idea of what it feels like and what it sounds like. And right away, you're going to hear that swing in the track. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you hear that swing that's going on. Hear the bass player? Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. There's a lot of syncopation going on in here that we can grab. Oh, music changes. Maybe go to the ride for that section. Okay. Maybe and on the bell. And then we're going to come back to the hi-hat part. Okay, awesome. That's a pretty funky track. It's got a little swing to it. It's got a little bit of a, it's definitely got an organ sound and New Orleans feel to it. So I'm hearing a very consistent rhythm. Bunt, 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 da, 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 bunt, bunt, bunt. So one of the first things I want to do is try to grab that rhythm somewhere on my kit, okay? And that rhythm, I think I could play on my bass drum. Maybe we could start out with something like this. That seems to work with that track. That's the first thing I'm going to think about is, again, locking my bass drum to the bass line in that swing style. Now, one of the things, like I mentioned, it's got syncopation in it. So I don't really know if I want to just pretty much play the snare on 2 and 4, because then it almost sounds like a hip-hop beat. Now, don't get me wrong, that would work. There's nothing wrong with that. But in this style of the New Orleans funk, you got to think a little bit more interplay, a little more creative, a little bit more syncopation on the snare drum. And this, again, adding some ghost notes, but now not just ghost notes, but adding some different types of accents on the snare in different places other than 2 and 4, which gets a little bit tricky. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is play the groove, and I'm going to kind of build it up like I did in the Grooveolution section. I'm going to show you how I created that groove between the hi-hat and the snare. Okay, so here's the track, and I'm going to build it up and show you the different accents and ghost notes you can do on the snare. And this is the groove that's in the book. Here we go. All right, so we did a lot of different stuff in there, but I think the main thing for you to grab out of that is the different accents on the snare drum. Okay, so now let's break that groove down a little bit slower. Here we go. Here's the groove. Playing that accent on the snare on the and, one and, okay? So getting it off of 2 and 4 is the next step for us, okay? We've done a lot of 2 and 4. Now we have to start to move that snare in different locations. And I did drop in some ghost notes in there as well. Now let's play that same beat with the hi-hat on quarters and the and on the bell variation that we've been doing in these lessons, okay? So I'll start with the variation slowly, and then I'll play the bass and snare groove. All right, it's a difficult groove to establish, but once you play it nice and slow and you work out the stickings of it, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this. Now, let's backtrack a little bit more and let's go even deeper into this groove. That's more of a contemporary, funky way to play that style of groove like a Zig modaliste would do with the meters. Let's take it all the way back. Let's go old school, like roots grooves in New Orleans. What they would maybe do with that is maybe start that on the snare drum and do some snare drum syncopations over that same rhythm on the bass drum, okay? So perhaps we could play a groove something like this. All right, so as you saw with that, I'm doing the swing 16th notes and syncopating the rhythm. You're seeing that whip motion happening, right? The next thing you saw me do was to change up my bass drum, and now my hi-hat is not just doing quarter notes, it's playing on the and. So the feet go like this. So now I'll piece it together for you slowly again. All right, so now we're going to play this track one more time, and we're going to start this time with the snare drum part that I just came up with, and then we're going to go into the funk groove that's in the book. Here we go. All right, so that's a little New Orleans funk flavor for you. One of those really, really important subgenres for you to learn, and the music goes much, much deeper in that. And perhaps in future lessons we can delve into that. And in the meantime, go back and check out groups like the Meters, Little Richard, go back even further than that, Fats Domino, and really listen to the roots of that style. Professor Longhair, Dr. John, groups like that will really, really get your affinity and appreciation for this music and get you in that right style. Okay? So until next time, see you later.